This is my presentation comparing my text for aesthetic and efferent reading in K-12 literature. The first book that I selected was my aesthetic book, titled How Kind by Mary Murphy. This book focuses on kindness and empathy that animals show each other through their actions and kind words. The next book I chose was my Efferent book, Have You Filled a Bucket Today by Carol McCloyd. This book focuses on teaching a moral lesson on how everyone can show others kindness and empathy by saying and doing nice things as well as actions they show each other. My reading and annotation had key passages and elements for my aesthetic reading. The key passages were, "How kind," said Peg. "I would like to do something kind too." "How can I be kind too?" Some key elements that were in this book were the illustrations, which were very vivid and colorful, the simple and repetitive language, which made it easier for the students to follow along, as well as the chain effect and a pay it forward kind of scenario, as well as the kindness that the animals showed by sharing, which created positive relationships. The key passages for my Efferent book were, all day long, everyone in the whole wide world walks around carrying an invisible bucket. Your bucket has one purpose only. Bucket filling is fun and easy to do, but you can also dip into a bucket and take out some good fillings. Try to fill a bucket and see what happens. So, how do you fill a bucket? Some key elements were the repetitive language, just like it was in the aesthetic book, the illustrations which showed the emotions of the characters, allowing the students to not only hear the words of kindness or unkindness, but as well to see the expressions that were shown as they did so. The metaphor of carrying an invisible bucket was teaching the students that they have emotions and feelings as people treat them kindly or unkindly. It also had the key elements of dipping is negative, and dipping has negative consequences for their unkind words or actions. It also had the element of kindness, fills the bucket, as well as happiness. The analysis has 4 sections: the purpose, audience, characteristics, and impact. The audience for both the Efferent and the aesthetic book is students, school-aged children. The audience also includes the reader, which typically is the parent or a teacher. The purpose of the aesthetic book was to create a positive emotional experience as well as a sensory experience for the students, and it also allowed the students to feel the kindness and empathy through the words and illustrations. The purpose of the Efferent book was to teach social emotional skills of kindness and empathy, as well as to instruct the students on how to show kindness and empathy to others. It also emphasizes the lesson that actions can hurt or uplift depending on how you act or the words you speak to others. It also motivated the students to show kindness and empathy to others in real life, allowing them to make the real world connection. The characteristics of the aesthetic books was the visual appeal with colorful and vivid illustrations. It also had illustrations that showed emotions as well as repetitive phrases, which had a friendly tone for the kids, so it was easy for them to understand. It also had kindness portrayed not just in the illustrations, but as well as the words. The characteristics of Efferent reading had a moral lesson about kindness and empathy. It taught them the benefits of kindness and empathy, as well as reinforcing positive behaviors towards others in their actions and their words. It explains the effect of negative behaviors, not only on the person that you may be unkind to, but on how it makes you feel worse inside as well. It is a structured lesson about everyday benefits for both the giver and receiver, as well as encourages self-awareness. The impact of understanding for kindness and empathy while reading an aesthetic book allowed the students to feel emotional connections. It influenced behavior, and it also showed them how to understand how to show empathy. The impact of understanding kindness and empathy with the Efferent book taught them the consequences of their actions. Students were able to identify actions, whether they were kind or unkind, through their actions and words, as well as allowed them to reflect on their daily actions and how they treat others. The reflection of this assignment was very interesting, as it taught me how to have a deeper understanding of aesthetic and efferent reading approaches. on how to create lessons, and social emotional connections can also be taught together. It showed me that books can be not only aesthetic or efferent, but it can be both. It gives more opportunity for role playing as well as hands-on activities that I can incorporate. It also allows me to create those lessons using text that have emotional depth that also teaches a lesson. I can incorporate this in my classroom by reading read-alouds with both nonfiction and fiction books, which I can have discussions, role-playing. I can label things that go along with it after we have answered questions from the discussion, as well as have writing activities. For example, I might read an Efferent book that is nonfiction, teaching students facts about wells and have them to label a well after having discussion answering questions. I could also read an aesthetic book that is engaging and exciting about wells and have the students to write what would be their favorite part of the story. These are just this is just one example that I have that I can incorporate into my classroom outside of comparing nonfiction and fiction books for students and allowing them to choose books that are exciting for them and then finding a book that would teach them facts or lessons about the same topic. I did try this reading these two books with my students because I did want to see the difference in the books and their reaction. The students loved the aesthetic book How Kind by Mary Murphy because it was so vivid and colorful, and they loved the animals in the book. It was also easier for them to keep up as it was very repetitive. Have You Filled a Bucket Today by Carol McLeod was also exciting for them because the illustrations there were not only pretty, but they could see the expressions of sadness in particular on the people's face as they were dipping into their buckets. So as the day went on, I would ask them, how do you show kindness today, or are you dipping into someone's bucket, and ask them, how did it make you feel when you did dip into someone's bucket versus if you're filling their bucket on a daily. So this was a very interesting activity for me to do with my class, and I found it very beneficial to do this assignment. Thank you.